Hello, hello. Welcome back for episode 32 of the Lorethrough. Today we will be scaling, or we will be moving through a little bit more of Liurnia, specifically the western edge. I don't know what was in my brain for that stutter, but let's get to it. Last time I got the crystal sword and I didn't have a chance to finish its item description. I got sidetracked. So it's a sword fashioned from pure crystal, a deed impossible for a human. Enwreathed with powerful magic, its attack scales with intelligence. The inscrutable crystallians have but one clear purpose: to safeguard their crystals unto the end. And that's where I cut off, right? Reading other item descriptions, specifically from spells that reference the crystallian people, right? And the last sentence says, one theory posits that they yearn for the return of their creator who will carve for them new brethren. So that is something we need to keep in mind here as we head through this part of the wilderness. I haven't been here too many times. If I recall, it's mostly stuff to see and not stuff to loot. But as we come over here, we see some of these crystallians for the first time. Which is funny how they're regular enemies here, when in other parts of the world, they are most certainly boss fights. And the best way to deal with them is a blunt implement. And parries are great, and blunt implements are good. Crystallians come in all sorts of varieties, and they kind of have different temperaments. I've found that the ones with the spears are the most aggressive. If parries are too hard, just get charged attacks with a blunt weapon. They're pretty telegraphed. That one gets me, though, because it's delayed. There we go. Nice and defeatable. So they look the same to each other, identical, but they have a little red cloak on them. Oh, they actually fall to bits in the open world. Huh. Never noticed that before. I've always, when you defeat them as a boss, they kind of just fade, if I recall. I'll pay attention next time we run into one. But yeah, they are here amongst all of this glintstone and these high-rise cliffs. Kind of an interesting set piece. I don't believe there's a whole lot here otherwise, but it was nice to see a crystallian. And I will use their crystal sword for a bit just to show it off. It's much like other straight swords, but I really like straight swords. There are numerous ashes of ore you can slap on them to make them very good. I remember realizing how weak and pitiful, not weak and pitiful, I should say, how easy to exploit shields were, and so I was sad that Sword and Board was dead when Elden Ring came out, especially since with the new poise system, straight swords didn't stumble on a single hit. In Dark Souls 3, there was a 2-hit combo you could reliably get with against other players with the straight sword, so Sword and Board was always a good idea. They were always very reliable. And they're still good in this game, but oftentimes you have to use 2 of them, or be very smart when you have 1. So here we have some marionette soldiers just hanging out in the woods. And here we have another wizard tower. I believe this one's our second, actually. So let's get up close and take a look. And there we have a minor Erd tree. And we can already see in the distance one of the Erd tree avatars in front of it with his staff. But we'll take a look in here first. So the last wizard tower we went to did not have a little wall around this, or around it, I should say. Stairs are in disrepair. Nice blue bricks, though. And here, for some reason, we have a statue of Queen Marika with her strange interlacing cloth pattern behind her, right? Item on the table. It's a piece of Kaku glintstone. So, Wizard Tower. Interesting that they'd have an icon of the Golden Order in the Wizard Tower. And the message says, Erudition guide thee. So this is a puzzle. We're supposed to do something pertaining to erudition, right? So if we had access to the erudition emote and a certain key item, well, it's not really a key item, but a set of key items that are potential items you could use here, you could solve the puzzle, right? I didn't know about that till much later on my first playthrough. Instead, what I did was I was a stinker, and I wanted to know what was in the upstairs, because the last Wizard Tower had a tasty reward in the top. And so I was like, well, there's this convenient wall here. And so you just walk up this, you come around. It's probably shorter travel distance if you come up from the other side, but you just kind of find this high rise right here, or this upraised bit of wall, and you just kind of run and jump at the shingles, and you'll usually make it. Here we are on the top. Here you know. No ladder needed. And here we get a better sight of the plateau. Well, from this angle, we're at least closer. There's that church up there. What a sheer cliff. What's that? Oh, it's a gap. I saw a little speck of white. I was like, is that an item? Couldn't help myself. Alright, so yeah, here's the top of the tower. Pop open this treasure chest, and we have another memory stone. So now we are at an astounding 5 whole spell slots. We're not a real wizard, but we're halfway there. At least in terms of spell slots. Not intelligence, though. Not at all. But now, we can take a sit down, and I can memorize a new spell. I don't even know what I'd want. I'm kind of happy with what I have. We will get Carrion Slicer. Because the melee move is very desirable. Even at low levels, Carrion Slicer is a very good pick. Okay. I could use the Crystallian Sword, but I'm gonna be fighting a big old wood enemy up ahead. Makes you wonder, are the marionettes just defending the tower? Now that we're in Liurnia proper, they can afford to use some marionettes for it. It seems to already have a defense mechanism to keep people from looting the top, which we exploited thanks to the verticality of the Wizard Tower. That's the spin. Wasn't very effective. He didn't have a whole lot of health left. I was going to show off Latenna. I remember now. Okay. So we're going to show off Latenna. I'm going to summon her right here. And I'm going to bring an implement that'll be very good for fire. You know what? Why not the big chunky axe? That'll be fun. And let's piss it off. Stupid fire pot's doing an immense amount of damage. Alright, so I'm going to wait a moment, and you'll see he is almost constantly being hit by Latenna. Rolled a bit early because of the projectiles. But yeah, even unupgraded, Latenna just keeps hitting the darn thing. Latenna was even shooting at it up in the air. And they're homing arrows just about. Not too difficult of a fight, especially with Latenna just doing constant chip damage. It doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it's so consistent, it's almost like a poison. And there we go. The fight is dealt with. None too tough. We grabbed some tarnished sunflowers. We see more of these pots that look like Alexander. And we get the Cerulean Crystal Tear and the Ruptured Crystal Tear. So let's take a look at those. So the Cerulean Crystal tier. I wish some of these had lore. They don't tend to have too much lore associated with them. So this one can be added to your Wondrous Physic to get you back half of your mana. And there's 2 halves of this. You can combine them to get a full mana restore. If you ever have enough mana to require a full mana restore, that your flasks aren't sufficient for a full fill up, then stop leveling Mind. You probably don't need that much. Well, if you're playing single player, that doesn't matter. If you're trying to be competitive, you probably don't need more than 20 mind ever. That feels pretty hard stance. I've seen up to 30 mind. It's just when you get up to meta levels like 137 or 150, that's a lot of points to be put into a stat that can be very useful elsewhere, and you're better off just chugging more potions. Like, heavier armor makes a huge difference. Being able to wield better weapons makes a huge difference. If you're a pure caster, 20 mind will probably suffice. If you're just co-oping for fun or just playing the single player, then who cares? Level what you want. Have fun. Have a good time. Alright, let's continue on our trek. I should probably point out one of these just to be interesting. But there we see a balloon, right? And we won't be doing too much with the lake just yet. That'll be farther on. But there's marionettes hanging from the balloon. It's a little hot air balloon, right? But if we take one of these and just take a pot shot at the balloon itself, it pops, and we get a great rune. Or a golden rune, not a great rune. And it drops the marionette soldiers. And I don't believe those respawn. And I believe that the enemies attached to it won't respawn either. Meanwhile, I believe if you get close to it, they'll just drop on your head. And then they'll respawn as long as you don't destroy the balloon. It's probably worth it for the money, though. It's not like you have any shortage of marionette soldiers to farm. Goodness, cannot speak today. Alright. Fall on this road a little bit. There we go. And did he drop a thing? He did drop a thing. Just a sunflower. That was very necessary. And there we see a statue of Rosas. So we will depart from the path heading northward and instead follow this path that is wrapping around and going southward. But yeah, sure enough. Did I call him Rosas? I shouldn't have. We don't know his name yet. Curse me. It's one of those days where I just wanted to get another episode recording in. There wasn't a whole lot of prep for this episode because it's just clearing out a little more of the map. Sword Dance. Sword Dance is something I can talk about. And ignore these bats. We've seen bats before. They're nothing special. Sword Dance was an Ash of War, then called a weapon art in Dark Souls 3. And I don't believe it was on any other weapon other than the Follower Saber, which was a weapon you could get in the DLC. And that was, yeah, that was when there was 2 types of curved swords of the small variety, not including curved great swords. There was the small ones that were still good, and the large ones that were good, and then how good they were was patched out later. And it was one of the larger ones, this Follower Saber. And its default weapon art, because you couldn't switch them out back then, was Sword Dance. And what makes Sword Dance so interesting is that it's this crazy flip that has an optional follow-up strike, and the flip and the follow-up strike are fantastic at breaking the guard of anybody with a shield. So I'm curious to know, is there anything that we could slap that onto that would be worthwhile? You know what? Do we not have it anymore? Did I put it away? I probably put away the Grave Scythe. That was a mistake. The Grave Scythe is a fantastic pick to have Sword Dance on because scythes and shodels already do a good deal of work when hitting things through their shield. Can we put heavy? Yeah, we'll put heavy on it for now. So I'll show that off. So, shodels and scythes, they do like 40% of their damage through shields. Come on. Come on. I was so delayed. My parry didn't even come out. Goodness. Okay. And so if you combine it with the effective guard-breaking techniques of a, if you combine the guard-breaking technique... Oh, no! Oh, I've never shown this off. Yeah, if they get you from behind, they do a little multi-stab backstab. So here it is. And then the follow-up. Oh, the follow-up is the same button. It's not a heavy. And then that. That just smacks shields. The side does a great job of doing that. Square off is also a good Ash of War for that. Square off being this stance here. So you put the weapon in stance, and then you can do a light attack that's a shield break, or a heavy that's a charge. Very simple, but a very good Ash of War. Go back to using this. Here we have a whole bunch of glove warts, and I think if this is the dungeon that I remember... Oh, he's throwing stuff at me. Very rude. Gonna remember to put this on and save on resources if I can. But I think I heard more imps. Do a little starlight. Goodness, I thought I was faster. Okay. Here we have some blue flames. Or maybe they're blue because of my light. I think they're blue flames, yeah. And we have an illusory wall at the end here. You can have a little glintstone pebble as a treat. Make him regret that decision. And since it's a strength weapon, as if we two-hand it, we do. And that, for some reason, if you put Spinning Slash on a small weapon, at least in terms of PvP, it has a lot of hyper armor, meaning it's hard to interrupt. And the larger weapons don't seem to get a benefit quite as nice as that. Ray Lucaria, Soldier Ashes. Okay. I didn't look at the Ruptured Crystal Tear, did I? My bad. A defensive crystal tear which possesses absolutely no medicinal qualities. A lesson said to the learned by the hard way... A lesson said to be learned the hard way for some. Faith can be a volatile matter, if at all. So you mix it into your Wondrous Physic, and it causes the concoction to explode after a brief delay. There's 2 of these, so you can put them both in a flask and become a suicide bomber. It almost all... Well, from my experience, it does more damage to your enemies than it does to yourself, and people will have whole builds to facilitate that self-detonate, mostly to do big damage to take care of players they are invading, which is quite rude but effective. And then I need to look at those Spirit Ashes. Right. Yeah, we'll look at the Spirit Ashes. Ray Lucaria, Soldier Ashes. Okay. A trio of spirits consisting of 2 disposable foot soldiers and their superior. The soldiers of Ray Lucaria were known as the Cuckoos. They were given free rein by the Academy to wage war as they pleased, and they were infamous for their rapacious ways. Kind of interesting that they're given free rein like that. Is that a lot of trust, or was that like a bargaining chip in some deliberation at a point in their political history? Like, all right, we'll let you do what you want as long as you leave us alone. So we went to the back of the dungeon, right? New thought here. And it was a dead end. There was one illusory wall, right? Which implies there could be more. So we're going to use our handy-dandy Margit Shackle. Which, won't you know it, dispels illusions. I never know, like... My starlight, give it back. My ever-gleaming starlight. My superior torch. Probably not worth the spell slot, but I like it. Ooh, the Watchdog staff. I forgot this was here. Large stone large stone staff embedded with glintstone, wielded by Erdtree burial watchdogs who protect catacombs. The watchdogs, battered and broken over their lengthy tenure, rule the catacombs and are even said to command the imps. And it's, I believe it's a colossal weapon. Yep, big old colossal weapon. 230 AR, not so good right now. And the interesting thing is that it is a strength weapon. Even though it has glintstones in it, it is a strength weapon. Ooh. Big ol' bonks. And I should have shown it off, but if you lock onto a target and use its Ash of War, get all these little darts that will flow towards your enemy. And since that's a strength weapon and not an intelligence weapon, that is a method of getting a projectile attack as a strength build. I like this thing. It's not the best. The supporting attack can be very helpful to give you cover when approaching another player, though, because it can force them to consider dodging. I haven't tested its damage output at higher levels, so I couldn't tell you how good it is. Here's the boss door that was opened, but hidden behind illusory walls. Get some more root resin. And we are going to craft... Oh, I don't have any. Well, hopefully I won't need them. Yeah. We should be fine. We're probably going to be fine. Oh, this is a different fight than I thought it was. I don't know why I thought this was a burial watchdog fight. So we have a sneaky snail. And it summons this Crucible Knight. And so we have to find the snail repeatedly while dealing with this Crucible Knight. Good thing I know how to deal with Crucible Knights. The spear ones, in my opinion, are a little harder to parry. The timing just doesn't feel quite right. And so now we have a moment, and if we give the snail enough time, he will resummon. Okay, where'd he go? Okay, go ahead and resummon. You want to see it? Yeah, look at his dance. He's so happy. But he's a snake and a snail. Very bizarre. But we've had enough of this fight. Interesting that he summoned a sword and board version of the Crucible Knight. And if you were paying close attention, they have different helmets between the spear and the sword variants of that enemy. Glintstone Sorcerer Ashes. Seems interesting that the ashes would be at the roots of Erdtree Burial, or Great Tree Burial, right? So let's take a look at those new ashes. Spirit of a Rea Lucaria sorcerer wearing a stone crown. A scholar of the can't speak today. Olivinus Conspectus, who has mastered the use of the Glintstone Star's sorcery. So he'll fire the little triple or 6 burst, I forget which, set a spell. We have the 3 burst right now, that's all we got, but nice little thing to poke at enemies. I think Latenna's better, but then again, the sorcerer will probably move a little bit and smack things to get too close, so that might be a superior choice in some situations. But given the raw damage output of Latenna, I think it's worthwhile to just keep her safe and let her do her thing, and she will do the fights for you. But if you're picking an a set of Spirit Ashes for the flavor and the fun of it, go with what makes you happy. You don't need to go with what I like or what I think is good. Always make your own decisions, and always, in this game, of course, specifically, that's where this advice is going to come in handy. Always follow what you think is cool and give it a test, and you might like something I don't. You just got to be brave. The problem is that oftentimes when you want to explore and play with weapons, it's hard to keep everything equally upgraded. Some of you may notice, hey, you have a lot of stuff equally upgraded, and you're able to play with a lot of things. True, I have to get the things and prepare between episodes to make that happen. And in a normal playthrough, you'll have like 2 weapons, maybe 3 if you start until you snowball and get later and later in the game. So you might want to be careful with what you upgrade. So I recommend a fast weapon, a slow weapon, and a pokey weapon. Oh, Edgar the Revenger is invading us. Castellian Edgar, actually. What's up, dude? What's going on? What's the problem? What happened? Okay, we can parry that. Watch me parry 3 times to make it connect. Edgar, what's going on, man? We helped you. Buddy? Buddy! Listen to reason. Even if the reason is a very sharp crystal sword in your gut. Do you have a health item? Come on, you gotta have a health item, right? There we go. That's not a health item, Edgar. Edgar! Edgar, no! Edgar, it doesn't have to be this way. Oh, I wish we could get your chest piece. There's a version of it that we can get, and we get the Banished Halberd plus 8, the Shibiri Grape, and a handful of meat dumplings. Now we have 6. Gross. A pungent raw meatball, made succulent by virtue of being on the verge of turning. Ugh. Restores HP, but also poisons the user. Not recommended for those who prefer to know the origin of their meats. We also got his halberd, which we've seen these before. Other Banished Knights have had them. So Edgar is for sure a Banished Knight of some variety. And he has spinning strikes on this thing, which is kind of like the stance for the straight sword, in that you hold down the Ash of War button, it starts, and then you can either follow it up with a light attack or the heavy version. I haven't used a lot of these in this game, mostly because it's not nearly as broken as it was in the last game. Dark Souls 3, if you used spinning strikes on the weapon it came with, you could hit people. It was like a 4 or 5 hit combo, basically. It would just hold them. I think it was the heavy too, actually. Yeah, it was a 3 or anywhere between 3 and 5 hits, I think. But it would basically, you could use it on people, and there's a lot of one combo builds people do. So we come in here, and we see a bunch of commoners, each with their own raw meat dumpling. Very gross. And Edgar seems to have... Oh, and one noble in the corner. Right? Why was Edgar now called Edgar the Revenger? What's with all these bodies? Oh, there's one more noble there that I missed. What did Edgar do here? It seems likely, given his incredibly aggressive nature, that he came to... Well, we know it as the Revenger's Shack. We don't know if that's always been its name. Did he come here and slay all these people? He made it sound like he was going to go after the Misbegotten who killed his daughter. Is Edgar perhaps angrier at the bureaucracy and the nobles who might have put him in his position as Castellan of the castle to watch over it? So much so duty-bound that he instead decided to look over the grafted greatsword that is now in our possession. Over here, grafted greatsword, right? He's so obsessed with watching over the grafted greatsword and being a good Castellan that his daughter died. Is he perhaps taking revenge on the people who put him in that position and not the Misbegotten themselves? Does he see the Misbegotten as little more than animals, maybe not worthy of his blame? Or did he already kill a bunch of them before coming here? Many such questions. Alright, so we'll be heading more due north next time. It's going to be a while before we get a map fragment, but I thank you for joining me today on episode 32. I hope you had a good time, and you better enjoy the rest of your day, or I'll find you, and I'll make threats. Empty threats, but threats nonetheless. Goodbye.